And welcome back, everybody, for another year of This Week in Pro Football on JAKIB Sports. I am not your host, but I am filling in for the great Pat Callahan tonight. It's an honor and a privilege to do it. We have a great opening week slate here in the National Football League. We'll talk a little bit about that. We will hone in on that Thursday night season opener between the Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys. All sorts of good games, all sorts of great divisional matchups all across the NFL, including a Friday matchup in Sao Paulo between the Chiefs and the Chargers. Our NFC East foes, the Giants, are taking on the Commanders. All sorts of good matchups. A Sunday night matchup between the Ravens and the Bills. How about that to kick off week one of the NFL season? And a Monday night NFC North battle between the Minnesota Vikings and the Chicago Bears. We'll talk about all that coming up next on This Week in Pro Football.
It's time for This Week in Pro Football, a deep dive into the key issues and marquee matchups in the National Football League. For the next 60 minutes, we invite you to sit back or lean in with host Pat Callahan as we preview the week's Eagles matchup, big games, breaking stories, and all news NFL. It's This Week in Pro Football, right now on JAKIB Media Sports.
And welcome in, everybody, to a week one edition of This Week in Pro Football. I'm your host for the night, Zander Krause, sitting in for the great, the one, the only Pat Callahan, who's set to join us next week to kick off the season on week two. I'll send a little message along from Pat. He was devastated he could not be here tonight for the week one edition of This Week in Pro Football, but we will do our best to kind of fill those shoes. Those are some big shoes to fill, filling in for Pat Callahan. So we miss you, Pat, and we can't wait to have you back next week for week number two of This Week in Pro Football. If you look at the slate, guys, it's a beautiful slate for week one. And obviously football is back on the docket, and that excites each and every one of us. And I'll pull up the games just so we can kind of take a look. But it's obviously kicked off tomorrow night by the defending Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles taking on the division rival Dallas Cowboys. But here you go. You have it right here on the screen. The week one slate goes into Friday night. You got that Chiefs and Chargers matchup, which is a great matchup. And then in the 1 p.m. window, you got the Bengals and the Browns. You got the Dolphins taking on the Indianapolis Colts. You got the Panthers taking on the Jaguars. The Raiders taking on the Patriots. Big Sills having a big year, predicting a big year for the Patriots this year, making the playoffs as a wild card. We'll see what they can do with year number two of Drake May and then the Geno Smith-led Raiders. You got the Arizona Cardinals home to Josh Sweat after he departed the Super Bowl champion Eagles, taking on New Orleans Saints, who are coached now by Super Bowl champion offensive coordinator Kellen Moore. Going into that later half of the day, still in the 1 p.m. window, Steelers taking on the New York Jets. The Giants, that's a good matchup there, though, with the Steelers. You got Aaron Rodgers, obviously, left the Jets, joined the Steelers this year, so they'll kind of revisit each other there, and then vice versa. Justin Fields taking on the Steelers after being there last season. So pretty interesting storylines there. You got the New York Football Giants taking on the Washington Commanders. A lot of expectations on that Commanders team coming into the year. I don't know if they'll be able to live up to them. In that 4 o'clock window, guys, you got the Titans taking on the Broncos. A lot of expectations again on that Broncos team this year. Bo Nix had a great year one, more than I expected him to. 4:05, you got the Niners taking on the Seahawks. It's a good storyline there. It's a good storyline. The Niners are obviously back and more healthy than they were last season. Will they kind of return to form as a top contender in the NFC? And then obviously the Seattle Seahawks, who moved on from Geno Smith and brought in Sam Darnold, who had a hell of a season last year with the Minnesota Vikings. Maybe the game of the weekend is that Lions and Packers opener between the NFC North teams kicking off at 4:25. How about it, everybody? The Micah Parsons-led Green Bay Packers taking on what was arguably the best team in the regular season last year, Detroit Lions. Those teams finished 15-2 last year and 14-3 respectively. So Lions finished out 15-2. Packers were a little bit back. It was the Vikings who were 14-3. Packers, I believe, were 12-5, but a great matchup there with the addition of Micah Parsons. Another good matchup in that 4:25 window. That's a good window, that 4 p.m. window. The Houston Texans taking on the LA Rams. I like the Rams in that game, but that's a sneaky team. And with that back injury to Matthew Stafford, it will be interesting to see how he fares in that matchup against that, obviously, that talented Houston Texans defense there. 8:20, another candidate for the game of the week, the Sunday Night Football matchup between the Baltimore Ravens and the Buffalo Bills. Those are my two teams, guys. My two favorite teams to come out of the AFC this year. Now, I know that's a tough thing to say when the Chiefs have dominated that conference the way they have, but I do believe that the Bills and the Ravens both have a great chance to kind of take over and win the AFC this year. That'll be a great week one matchup. And then you got the Monday matchup, 8:15. You got the Minnesota Vikings taking on the Chicago Bears. So another NFC North battle. Expectations on the Bears are a little increased with the addition of Ben Johnson as their head coach. Obviously, Detroit Lions, previous offensive coordinator, one of the most sought-after head coaches in the National Football League was Ben Johnson, and now he lands with Caleb Williams and the Bears. How does he fare versus that football team, versus the Minnesota Vikings, who are a Brian Flores-led defense, a good defense over there? That's going to be an interesting battle. So there's your week one slate, everybody. It's a beautiful slate. It's exciting to have football back on the docket like we do, and I think that's going to be a beautiful matchup. Let's dive into that Thursday night matchup. Obviously, a Dallas Cowboys team that maybe you could call them flailing. You know, they had 3 straight 12-win seasons. Last year, they kind of fell back. They had a lot of injuries. Dak Prescott missed most of the year, and now they trade away Micah Parsons. It almost feels like Dallas is entering a rebuild mode, and I don't know if that's going to fare well for them. Now, you know, week one, I think, is the biggest advantage the Cowboys have in that game with, you know, will they be able to use the uncertainty of week one to their advantage? I think they will be able to do that. I'm going to be joined tonight, guys, by Sal Palantonio, who is set to join us here. I'm sitting in for Pat Callahan tonight. We were supposed to have a full slate of shows, but we had a last-minute change, and we will not have Bill Reinhardt. I haven't heard back from I did hear back from Bill. So let me send him a link and see if we'll get him up. He'll give you guys the fantasy look for week one, and then we'll go to Sal Palantonio, who will join us right around 6:15. So I'll see if I can get Bill up, and then Cody Zeeb, the sports gambling podcast, was set to join us. He should join us in week number 2. So we'll wait to see on them. That matchup tomorrow night, it will be interesting, though, you know, especially with the way the Eagles defense has changed, you know, kind of zooming out. We talk about it each and every day here on JAKIB, but just zooming out and looking at it again, you know, from the big picture. What are the key storylines, you know, in this game? It's the Super Bowl defense, the number one defense in football, reloaded or regressed. You know, what's the story? What does that look like with the departures of Darius Slay, Josh Sweat, Milton Williams, and all the other guys, you know, that left? You know, what does that look like for this team? CJ Gardner-Johnson as well. Is that defense reloaded or is that defense regressed? And then you have, obviously, the one new coach for this year for this team is the offensive coordinator. It's Kevin Patullo. And he checks in as a first-year offensive coordinator, taking over for Kellen Moore, who, you know, was, for lack of a better word, the architect of the run-first Eagles offense last year that dominated their way to a Super Bowl victory over the Kansas City Chiefs. You know, will he be able to do it? And then how critical is week one for Patullo and Jalen Hurts? I don't think you come in with, a full expectation that you're going to be able to unfold and know what that's going to look like, but certainly a lot to look forward to in week one with versus the Cowboys in the season opener. And then the bold prediction, you know, what do you think with that defense being number one last year and with that run game working as well as it did? Are they going to be able to replicate that formula? You know, you look across the modern NFL, this is a passing league. You know, and the Eagles did it in an unconventional way in the modern game last year, and it will be interesting to see what they're able to do. I do have Bill Reinhardt in the green room right now, so let's bring Bill Reinhardt on. He is going to give you guys everything you need to know about the fantasy football start to the year. Let's bring him on now. Bill, welcome to the show, man. Thanks for joining in on this Wednesday evening. How you doing?
Good, Zander. My pleasure. No worries.
Thanks for joining me, brother. We got fantasy kicking off. Everybody's going crazy, Bill. The fantasy drafts are wrapping up. There might be even some people who are drafting this evening. Give me your top couple guys, man, as we get ready for the fantasy football season. Obviously, a lot of changes in who the top leaders were last year. What kind of big changes do you think are going to happen this season?
Yeah, there's a lot of changes. You know, just last year, the first 3 picks, Breece Hall, CMC, Tyreek Hill, all busts. So, when you're drafting in that first round, it's very nerve-wracking, and it's you have to weigh the pros and cons. Puka Nacua, he's banged up. He's got a tough quarterback situation. Amon-Ra has new offensive coordinator.
Right.
So you kind of have to play it safe. And people are, even Saquon Barkley is slipping down the board. He's going at number 12. Sometimes he's even going on the turn in the second round. So to me, your safe picks, obviously, you take Bijan, all right? You take Chase. Then, you're happy. If you want to take Henry, he's got a lot of, wear on the tread, but, you can stay safe with him. And then you got your receivers. You got CD, you got Amon-Ra, you got Nico Collins, who is also sneaking into that first round. And then if you're like me, you said you're a Bills fan and a Ravens fan. If you're like me, man, I just took Josh Allen with my first pick because
I'm an Eagles fan, but I like those quarterbacks and I like
right.
those players for fantasy. Now, you mentioned Saquon Barkley. I got to go there.
Yeah.
I don't know, Bill. I mean, you look at the history of 2,000-yard backs. It's not great the year after, but that offensive line, man, is one of the best in football, and I think they're only getting better. I know they lost Mekhi Becton, replaced with Tyler Steen, a younger, more unproven player, but Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens. Feels like Saquon's going to be able to run again. What do you think of what that team might be able to do this year in the running game?
I agree 100%. I think they give him a little bit more of a breather. Who's Will Shipley?
Will Shipley's their backup. Yep. And A.J. Dillon they added as well.
Yeah, and they're really talking about A.J. Dillon. He'll come in for 2 plays and get hurt, but that's okay. But they are talking of Shipley a lot. I agree. Great offensive line. You got to use Saquon, but you have to use him sparingly. And I don't think they can beat him to death like they did last year and expect him to last the whole season.
Yeah, 400-plus carries last year, Bill. That was a big one. You just gave us some first-round locks. I'm going to have you grade my first pick. I landed Jamar Chase with the number 3 overall pick in our. I know. I mean, I'm talking to my buddies. Most drafts, he went 1 or 2. I was able to land the triple threat winner last year with the number 3 overall pick. So I felt pretty good about my lineup this year.
How do I get in your league?
Because right. A bunch of cheese balls, man. I don't know what they were doing with those first 2 picks.
Yeah, but the question is, did you take Burrow on the way back so you had the hookup?
No, I didn't. See, my first round matchup actually has Burrow, so we'll see how that plays out. If I do well, I assume his quarterback will do well. Bill, hit me with some bust candidates this year. You mentioned the top 3 picks last year didn't really work out. Who do you think are the bust candidates this year for fantasy football owners?
So later on in the draft, the one guy that was just everybody's darling was Caleb Johnson from Pittsburgh. Everyone's like, oh, my God, they finally have a number 1 running back. He's Jerome Bettis, but a little smaller. And it's just, I don't see it. Mike Tomlin has not had a lead back in years. They just announced he's going to be 3rd on the depth chart behind Warren and behind, help me out here.
I don't know who they have there.
Hold on.
They got rid of
Gainwell.
Oh, right. Kenny Gainwell, former Eagle. Correct.
So I don't see Johnson getting a lot of work. And here's the kicker. He doesn't pass block well. So if you've got Aaron Rodgers on the field and you have to protect him from a blitzing linebacker, you're not going to have Caleb Johnson on the field. So that to me is a definite bust candidate. My other one, and I have a few, but I'm really not big on Stephon Diggs. He's just 10 months removed from that ACL injury. We all know it takes 18 months to fully heal from that. He's 32 years old. I know they're counting on him to be the number 1 receiver. He's being paid like that. Good young quarterback, but I'm not spending a lot of my fab on Stephon Diggs.
Any breakout players for us, Bill? Good list there of potential bust. What about breakout players, guys that maybe didn't dominate or didn't really emerge last year that could see emerging this season?
So it's interesting. Trey Benson of the Cardinals, I've tried to get in every draft. The starter James Conner he's exhausted. He's led the team in carries every year. He has like 1,000 carries in the last 4 years, I believe, and he's even lobbying for Trey Benson to get more carries. The kid's good. He's talented. And I can see them pretty much splitting carries. And you can actually start him, not as an RB2, but maybe as an RB3 down the road. And even opening day, they're playing the Saints. And I don't believe the Saints are going to keep up with the Cardinals at all. And I can see Benson taking over in the second half. I say he gets 70 yards and a touchdown this weekend, and that's not bad for like a 12th round draft pick.
Yeah, there you go. Good value there for from Bill Reinhardt here. Appreciate Bill joining in on the show. Make sure you guys follow Bill. It's fantasy. Is it My Fantasy Bill? Is that what it is on X? Make sure you give him the right username.
Yeah, I was when you called me up, I was like frantically typing in my information. So yeah, it's NFL Fantasy Bill on Twitter, on X. You can follow me there. I'm in the New York Daily News. My columns come out Thursdays with my starts and sits, and also I pick the Thursday night games. And then the biggest thing is I'm fantasyguru.com, where I write a weekly column, but it's always kind of different. Last week I just put NFL players with Yogi Berra quotes, which was a lot of fun. And tomorrow it is all about what if. So what if Patrick Mahomes went to the Giants? What if Barkley went to the Cowboys instead of the Eagles? What if the Detroit Lions won the Super Bowl? So that's my article tomorrow, and it's a lot of fun. It's a great read.
Wow, there you go. And make sure you guys check out that fantasyguru.com. We got Bill Reinhardt here. Bill, a couple more questions here for you.
Sure.
Rookie impact, Bill. You think any rookies are good sleepers or good additions to a fantasy roster this year?
So I'm not a big rookie guy just because, I like to see him, but they're talking about McMillan down in Carolina. I can't pronounce his first name, so I'm not even going to try.
Ted. I just call him Ted. I'm going with Ted.
Yeah, T-Mac, actually, I think is what they're calling.
Okay, so there you go. That's
we'll
good.
Go with T-Mac. Now, apparently, he is catching everything, left, right, center, and he's huge. They just got rid of – they lost Coker for the season. They got rid of Thielen. They have that much belief in T-Mac that I think of all the rookies this year, and I know you got, Genti. Not a big believer in Genti this year, just to segue. So I like T-Mac. Genti, he's undersized. The Raiders had one of the worst rushing offenses last year. Just because you get a guy that played in a so-so conference in college and had success does not mean he's going to go tear it up in the NFL. So Genti, I never saw him slip past the second round. And, good luck, guys. I mean, I wish the kid well, but he's not a guy I'm sold on as far as rookie running backs.
Yeah, it's a guy that went pretty high in my league as well. So we'll see how he's able to do. Bill, last question for you here. QB landscape. After the big three or after whoever you like at the top, who are some sleeper quarterbacks that you think would be good to anchor your roster? I'll tell you this, Bill. I got left with Brock Purdy, and I didn't feel too great about that, but I'm thinking maybe Brock is good. Maybe he's a stat guy. They got an easier schedule this year. They were really injured last year. Maybe Brock could bounce back, get into that top 10 as a fantasy quarterback. Who are some of the sleeper quarterbacks you like for the season this year?
Well, I really, first of all, with Brock, it's just, who's playing, who's receiving. They got Pearsall. Is Juwan Jennings going to play? Is IU coming back? So there's so many questions there. But as long as CMC is still playing, because he'll catch 70 balls from Purdy. As long as that's happening, then you're fine with Purdy as your quarterback. The guy I really like this year is CJ Stroud. Now, he had a great rookie year for a rookie. He kind of crapped the bed last year, but I don't think he had his three receivers together in any one game last year between, Diggs, Collins, and Dell. This year, he's got new receivers. He's healthy. He doesn't suddenly suck. Okay, he's still the same guy that put up great numbers 2 years ago. So CJ Stroud, the Texans are solid. I know they're gonna have to get some help in the running game. I don't know if Chubb is gonna be able to pull that. I love that guy. I just feel so badly for him. I hope he does put it back together. But CJ Stroud has a lot of potential. He's a sleeper quarterback for me this year.
All right, now I got one of our listeners here. All right, he's denying my trade request, so I need to convince him.
All right.
If you had a choice for Brock Purdy or Baker Mayfield for your fantasy football team this year, who do you like?
Man, I'm a huge Baker fan. I know I'm killing you. I know I'm killing you. Don't tell Pat. He's going to throw me off the show. Listen, Baker, he was a top 3 quarterback last year.
41 touchdown passes last year.
He's been in the top 10 2 years in a row. I see no reason why it couldn't continue. Another receiver I can't pronounce, Ibuka, took over for Godwin. So you got him, you got Evans, you still have Kate Otten down there. I love Baker Mayfield, and I also, I love me some Bucky Irving, so I think that's going to be a great offense.
Yeah, me too, man. That Bucs team is pretty good. All right, Bill, any other final words for the fantasy nuts? I actually think some of our listeners right now have a draft taking place in 40 minutes at 7 p.m. Any final words on the fantasy outlook for the 2025 season?
As far as your draft goes, use common sense. Don't reach until the 12th, 13th round. Fill out your roster. Don't think, just because Mason is a good running back, he's not the starter in Minnesota. You're not taking him in the third or fourth round. You just got to use common sense and wait. And the one thing I will say, going back to how we started our conversation, is start all your Eagles. Man, stack your team with Eagles. And, that's half the battle. You just want players that score on good offenses. Don't waste your time with the starting receiver on Tennessee or the Saints. Go get your Eagles. Get Devontae Smith over Calvin Ridley. Do the smart things on the teams that are going to score, and that'll benefit your fantasy teams.
I think you might have tipped your hand there, but you said you make Thursday picks. I know you're picking my Eagles in the season opener tomorrow.
I did. Okay. I picked them. Are you kidding me? Micah Parsons is gone. The Cowboys have to be so dejected. I mean, I'm looking at 27-10, 27-13. I don't see how they're going to turn things. And I am a big Dak fan. I am. But I just think the whole attitude and the black cloud hanging over that franchise for the last few years continues.
Bill, isn't it a waving of the white flag? I mean, you take your best edge rusher and you ship them off for 2 first-round picks 2 weeks before the season begins. Right. If I'm in that locker room, Jerry just walked in with a white flag and waved it around. That's how I saw that move.
It's a big screw you to every player that thinks he's going to stay in Dallas. Although they just gave Ferguson, the tight end, a huge contract. I think he's the 3rd or 4th highest paid tight end for a guy who catches the ball and falls down every time he catches.
Well, in very Jerry fashion, he's now correcting the narrative. He's going on a tour to correct the narrative. Bill, well done. Appreciate you joining in tonight. Great fantasy input for the 2025 season. We'll talk to you again next week. Thank you, Bill.
Thanks, Zander. It's a pleasure.
Great stuff from Bill Reinhardt joining us here. All right, on This Week in Pro Football, a special edition. I'm your host, Zander Krause, sitting in for the one and only Pat Callahan tonight. You cannot replace Pat Callahan. You can only do your best to sit in the chair for a week, and that's what I'm doing here tonight. I want to welcome and thank everybody for being here on the show tonight. We've got a great crowd in here. Don't forget to hit that like button, drop your comments down below, and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate all those who are here, and Pat should be back for week 2 of the National Football League season. Looking forward to having Pat back in the chair. Let's go to our main man. Sal Palantonio from ESPN is set to join us right now on This Week in Pro Football. Sal joins us here. Sal, welcome to the show, man. How you doing on this Wednesday evening before the NFL kicks off tomorrow?
The eve of the madness and the mayhem in South Philadelphia. Gotta love it. I'm looking forward to tomorrow night. I know everybody I'm talking to going to the game, they're looking forward to it. This is a once in a lifetime event. And the Dallas Cowboys haven't visited the Philadelphia Eagles week 1 of the NFL season since 1970, 55 years ago, on the campus of the University of Pennsylvania at Franklin Field. I got all the gray hair. I remember it. I wasn't there, but I do remember that game, Zander. And I'll tell you what, it's really going to be an exciting night. And I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of the changes that the Eagles have put together this training camp. I like the team. I like the energy. I like the confidence. I like what the coaching staff has done. But mostly, I just like what I see from Jalen Hurts.
Yep, me too, Sal. A couple questions. We'll get into that Eagles-Cowboys game. We'll kick around some of the week 1 slate. But, Sal, you mentioned you've been around this league for a long time. What themes do you look for in week 1? I think it's gotten more and more sloppy over the years because of how they've handled the preseason football and some of those things. I mean, if you look back to last season, Sal, if you judge the Philadelphia Eagles on the first 4 weeks of the year, you would have been sadly mistaken at what the end result would have been. What kind of themes do you look for in week 1 of the NFL season?
Well, you got to be careful comparing last year's team to this year's team. Vic Fangio had just taken over the defense. Cooper DeJean was injured. He didn't play in the first 4 weeks, 3-4 weeks. So when he came in, he energized the secondary. There's no question about that. And then, the offensive line knocked on Nick Sirianni's door and said, head coach, let's run the football. Let's make Saquon Barkley the focal point of what we do offensively. And that changed everything. That flipped the switch. That turned on the lights for the football team. But, Nick Sirianni is 4-0 in openers in his tenure. And he's gone to 2 Super Bowls in 4 years. So I think he was the MVP of last year. I really do. Notwithstanding Saquon and Jalen, but the way he adjusted during the season, the way he had a willingness to listen to his players and listen to his coordinators. He allowed Vic Fangio to take over a large segment of the practice. They tackled more. Practices were a little bit longer on defense. He gave Fangio carte blanche. That was a huge, huge coaching feather in his cap. And I think Sirianni has done a magnificent job. I don't like not being out there for the banner. I think players absorb the inspiration from the crowd all over professional sports, but especially here in Philadelphia.
Right.
And I think the team owes it to the fans to be out there for the raising of the banner. And I think the team will get something from that. I do. You never really can legislate what drives people, what motivates them, what gets their emotional juices flowing.
Right.
I like the team being out there. So I hope they change their mind. It doesn't look like they're going to. I understand why they're doing it, but I think they should share it with the fans of Philadelphia.
I couldn't agree more, Sal. I'd like them to be out there and own that they're the defending Super Bowl champions. I know they don't want to say it, but they are kind of beating around it. Sal, I want to take you back. We had you on after the Super Bowl last year for the final edition of This Week in Pro Football last year. And a name that you said that was a free agent for the Eagles was Josh Sweat. You wanted to see them bring back Josh Sweat. Well, here we stand today. Josh Sweat is a member of the Arizona Cardinals. He had the number one defense in football last year that dominated the Kansas City Chiefs. They didn't get across midfield for 10 drives. Sal, you lost Darius Slay. You lost Josh Sweat. You lose Milton Williams. You lose C.J. Gardner-Johnson. You lose some depth pieces in Oren Burks. Is that reloaded or regressed? What do you think of that Super Bowl defense coming into the year?
That's a good question. I think it's reloaded. I don't think it's regressed because they still are dominant from the inside out.
Right.
However, I think I was wrong about Josh Sweat. I'll say that right now, Zander. I think the biggest loss was C.J. Gardner-Johnson, hands down. He was the focal point of that secondary. He was the guy that held things together. He provided the swagger, communication, production, led the team in interceptions. He was in the Super Bowl team when they went and lost to the Chiefs. He leaves. They don't go to the Super Bowl. He comes back. He goes back. They go back to the Super Bowl. Right. And they win it. So I think he's the biggest loss. They traded him for a guard that they wound up cutting. I would have held on to him. Find a way. I would have held on to him. And they still really haven't defined what the secondary is looking at. I got my flip card for tomorrow. And I'm looking at the cornerback position to replace Darius Slay. Zander, it's Adoree Jackson or Jacorian Bennett. At safety, it's Sidney Brown or Andrew Makuba, the rookie. You might see Mac Williams a little bit in there. But they haven't clearly defined the replacements for those two guys. Whereas on the defensive front, they have clearly defined it. And, they're smart in terms of having big up front, especially in the middle on both sides.
Sal, I want to take you over to the offensive side of the ball now, but more big picture here. Kevin Patullo, new offensive coordinator, first-year offensive coordinator, kind of inheriting the beast that is the Eagles' offense with Jalen Hurts at the helm. How critical is week one, Sal, for them kind of finding their rhythm, setting the tone for the year? And what do you see with Kevin Patullo overtaking that offense?
Well, he's going up against Matt Eberflus. Eberflus and Nick Sirianni coached together for 3 years in Indianapolis. But no Micah Parsons. You don't have to game plan for number 11. So that was a gift. How about this, Zander? If I would have told you 2 years ago, Zander, that the Giants would give away Saquon and the Cowboys would give away Micah Parsons, you would say, man, oh, man, I want to know what Howie Roseman's eating for breakfast because he is one of the luckiest GMs in the world, right?
That's the NFC East teams giving away their best player. As an Eagles fan, it's a beautiful thing, Sal. I'll take it all day long. Well, life without Micah Sal, let's just go into that before we get into the whole week 1 slate. A lot of great games happening across the NFL this year, and it is This Week in Pro Football, so we will hit all of them. But obviously, a big bullseye on this Eagles-Cowboys game. What do you think of that Cowboys team, Sal? When I saw that trade 2 weeks before the start of the season, I'm thinking, boy, Jerry just walked in and waved the white flag on the 2025 year. Now, they got good draft picks in the future, and they got good drafts coming up. Maybe they're in a position to rebuild, but felt to me like Jerry waved the white flag. What did you think of what the Cowboys did there and what their outlook is for this year without Micah Parsons?
The trade was a mistake, 100%. Listen, it wasn't the plan, right? If it was the plan, they would have traded him to Buffalo or Baltimore in March,
right.
Got the draft picks, and used them in April of 2025. So that wasn't the plan. And then to trade him within the conference to a team that you have to go through, I mean, it's insane. And there's only about 5 or 6 defensive players in the whole league that you must game plan for. And Micah Parsons is one of those guys.
Right.
He just is. So I think Eberflus will have one hand tied behind his back. And if you watch Super Bowl 59, Zander, Jalen Hurts was so smart behind the line of scrimmage. He was so good at figuring out pre-snap what Kansas City was doing. He was so prepared, and he was so smart, getting out of bad plays and getting into good ones. Spagnuolo tried to stack the box and stop Saquon, and he had some success doing that. But by doing that, he opened up the field to Jalen and Devontae and A.J. Brown and Dallas Goedert and Dotson, who had that one big play at the beginning of the game. Right? That was one-on-one. Jalen saw that one-on-one with Dawson. He gives him a little signal.
Right.
And he should have got in the end zone. I thought he might have been in the end zone. They didn't get in. But anyway, that's what Eberflus has to do. He must stop 26. If 26 goes for over 200 yards, it's bad for Dallas. Why? Because they got rid of Micah Parsons under the umbrella of stopping the run. So if they don't stop the run and they don't have Micah, what the heck do they have?
It's not looking good there. I don't think they're prepared to face this Eagles team at all. It should be a great week 1 matchup, though, in the city of brotherly love with the banner dropping tomorrow. That'll commence in just over 24 hours, everybody. Right around 26 hours from now, the NFL season will be kicked off. Sal, I want to zoom out a little bit, look across the NFL before week 1 here. AFC teams that you think are kind of emerging and in the room this year. I think you look, the Chiefs, maybe they regress this year. Is this the first year in 9 years they don't win that division? Maybe. Bengals, I think, are maybe a team that could get back to the playoffs after a shoddy defensive performance last year. And the Ravens, I think, are the best team in football this year coming into the season. What do you think of the AFC as a whole as we enter week 1 here?
Well, here's my rankings. I've got the Bills number 1 in the AFC.
Okay.
I think on ESPN.com, it will go live, I think, tomorrow. I've got Bills and Eagles in Super Bowl 60.
Right, wow. Super Bowl 60.
Super Bowl 60. I got Eagles and Bills in Super Bowl 60. I have Joe Burrow as the MVP. So I have Bills, Ravens, Bengals, top 3, 4 Chiefs, 5 Broncos. So you look at that division in the AFC West, it's gotten so much more competitive.
Yeah.
Chargers are good. Chiefs are good. Broncos are good.
Yeah.
Got a good defense and a young quarterback who can play and a great coach who's won a Super Bowl going to the Hall of Fame, Sean Payton. So, Zander, to me, that's the most competitive division without a doubt. And I think the Chiefs will not have home field advantage as a result.
Wow, it's going to be a big switch in the AFC. Speaking of it, and then we'll get into just a couple of the games that are happening this week for week number 1 of the NFL. But Eagles and who, Sal, in the NFC this year? I like the Rams. I'm not fully sold, Sal, that the Commanders are ready to stay in that room for another year. I like what they've done, but it's a big jump for them to be in that room again. Who do you like in the NFC coming into this year as potential Super Bowl contenders?
Here's my top 5 in the NFC. I like Eagles, Packers, Packers, number 2. Rams, 3, if Stafford's healthy. Big
Yep.
if.
Yep.
Big if. Big question mark. Has this back issue. A big mystery. We don't know the extent to it.
Right.
We don't know how he'll move within the pocket and outside the pocket and throw the football. But with Adams and Puka, he's got a 1-2 punch there, and they just paid their running back a lot of money, so he's going to get a lot of carries. Remember, it's a running back renaissance in the National Football League. The 5 teams that had 500 or more rushing attempts last year all made the playoffs. And the 4 teams right below them that had 450 to 500 rushing yards all made the playoffs last year. And the Eagles were number 1 in that category, and they won the Super Bowl. So you have to have a balanced attack in the National Football League right now. And you can see the teams like the Rams, the Bucks,
Right.
the Lions, the Ravens, the Bills, the Chiefs, the Eagles. Those are the teams that have balance on offense. And
Yeah,
they
no doubt.
the Lions, though, will take a step back because of losing the 2 coordinators. I think that's an issue. They have the hardest schedule in the league. Look at the Packers' schedule. It's pretty good. They won a lot of games last year while being 1-5 in their division. If they flip the script in their division, Zander, and go over 500, Packers could have 13, 14 wins.
That was a division where 3 teams made the playoffs last year. A tough division. We'll see what it looks like. Great stuff there from Sal Palantonio. Joining me now, ESPN's national correspondent. Sal, just a couple games I want to get into. That Friday game, what a great game in Sao Paulo this year. Chiefs, Chargers. We just talked a little bit about the Chiefs, and I think the Harbaugh-led Chargers are emerging and are maybe ready to get into the conversation. What do you think of that Friday night game to kick off the season here, Sal?
1 year ago, exactly, we were trying to get on StreamYard.
Yes, we were.
Sao Paulo, Brazil. Finally, I had to do it on my phone on the internet of the NFL hotel. And we were in the penthouse, sort of like NFL lounge. And we finally got on to get on This Week in Pro Football, the first ever This Week in Pro Football on JAKIB Media from Brazil.
That was Sao Paulo, we called it.
1 year ago today, brother, we were negotiating the internet in order to get on live from Brazil. How about that? Is that crazy or what?
It really is, man. A year later, here we are.
Time flies. Here we are. That's a tough game. That's a bad. I hope they change that field.
Yeah, me too. That was a sloppy game last year, Sal. There, I remember the Eagles won that game with 3 turnovers on the board. I think it was 34-29. A very sloppy game. We'll see how that.
That was the first time Jalen Hurts won a game when he had turned the ball over 3 times.
Yeah, so that was a very sloppy game last year. Sal, let's keep rolling down the slate. I think one of the best games out there is that 425. You just talked about the Packers being maybe the potential team to beat in the NFC North if they can flip the script in their division. Well, it starts in week 1. They got the Detroit Lions 425 window. What do you see in that game, Sal?
That game's in Lambeau. That's a home game.
Right, it's a home game for the Packers.
Okay, I'm looking at my watch, which I'm not wearing. But if I was wearing one, it's tick-tock. Time is running out for Matt LaFleur, right?
I agree.
They gave him everything they wanted. They draft a wide receiver in the first round. They trade 2 first-rounders for Micah Parsons. I mean, their schedule is easy. Is there been a bigger week 1 must-win game in the history of the NFL? They got to beat the Lions in this game.
It's going to be a good one, too. Sal, moving into that Sunday night game, Bills, Ravens in Buffalo. I think that is going to be maybe the game of the week with that one. You said you got the Bills top of the AFC, and I'm right there with you along with the Ravens. They're going to be 2 tough teams. What do you see in that matchup for week 1 here?
Well, you know how the Ravens lost last year, 3 turnovers for a team that didn't really turn the ball over at all last year. So, but I do like quite a bit. I do like the Bills in that game. I do. I mean, they're going to be more dynamically balanced on offense, and that's good for them. And I think they'll be able to dictate what they want to do offensively.
Yeah, good stuff. Sal, last one here is that Monday night game, Vikings and the Bears, another NFC North matchup. I like the Bears. People keep telling me
You
you don't know, and I'm like, I don't know. I feel like the Bears might be able to make some hay this year. Maybe not. It's a tough division. But what do you see in that one with J.J. McCarthy leading a team that won 14 football games last year with Sam Darnold, and then the Bears with the addition of Ben Johnson, obviously, as their head coach?
Remember that TV show, Growing Pains? Remember that?
Yeah.
That's what this football game is going to be, growing pains for both quarterbacks.
Right.
That's what this football game is going to be.
So potentially an ugly one on a Monday night.
Buckle your seatbelt. Yeah, this is growing pains for both of them.
Yeah, good stuff. Sal Palantonio joining us here on this special edition of This Week in Pro Football. Sal, thanks for joining in tonight, man. We appreciate you as always. One of the best, very best in the business, ESPN's national correspondent. Sal, we thank you for being here, sir. We'll talk to you again next week, all right?
Great job, Zander. Thanks for having me, man.
Thank you, Sal. There's Sal Palantonio joining us right here on JAKIB Sports across This Week in Pro Football. I sit in for the one and only Pat Callahan. They're big shoes to fill, everybody, when you got Pat Callahan as your host. But we do appreciate Sal Palantonio joining us on a special edition of This Week in Pro Football. I want to welcome and thank everybody for being here this evening. Always great to talk to Sal Palantonio. Man, is he an encyclopedia for football knowledge, or is he an encyclopedia for football knowledge? That was tremendous stuff there. And you can say he feels pretty good about the Eagles coming into the year. He says that defense has not regressed. So we'll see if he's right about that. The number one defense in football last year dominated their way all the way through the Super Bowl. Not to the Super Bowl, through the Super Bowl, and it ended in the Eagles hoisting the Lombardi trophy. I did like what Sal said too, guys, about, just own the moment with the banner. I know some people are out there like, hey, this is a great thing. They're trying to, hone in the mindset of the team, but I'm with Sal. There's this old saying out there. It's the only way out is through. And I'm of the impression or the belief that if you're the Philadelphia Eagles, you should own who you are, what you accomplished, and what you're trying to do next. I don't think you should tiptoe around it. I don't think you should tell people they can't say the word, the R word, the repeat word. I don't think that makes sense. If I'm the Eagles, if I'm Nick Sirianni, if I'm Jalen Hurts, own it. We're the Super Bowl champs, and we did it in dominant fashion. None of it matters, and we're on a new quest, a new mission, and a new journey this year. That's the way I see it, but obviously they're going to do what they're going to do, and we can only talk about it. We can't change any of that. So, but that is my perspective on it. Again, I want to thank everybody for being here tonight on a special abbreviated edition of This Week in Pro Football. All right. I'm not going to go the full hour and 15 minutes that Pat Callahan normally does. We hope to have Pat back in the chair next week. Okay. For week number 2 of This Week in Pro Football. We apologize that Pat wasn't here tonight. Again, I can't fill in for the one and only Pat Callahan. I can do my best, but those are big shoes to fill. So, Pat, we love you. We're thinking of you. Sal Palantonio, thank you, sir, for doing it, for joining in to the youngster. Coming in and joining the youngster from Sal Palantonio. That's pretty good right there, everybody. That's one of the best interviews maybe I've done. So that's a pretty cool moment for me, just talking to Sal Palantonio here live on the air. Jerry says, "Zander, pray for me." I'll pray for you, Jerry. Sorry to hear, man. My dog passed earlier this year. It's always a sad thing. So it will get easier for you, Jerry. Hang in there, brother. Thanks everybody for joining. Hit that like button on the way out. And Pat Callahan should be back 1 week. I'll run a commercial break for the great sponsors here on This Week in Pro Football, and we'll wrap this up. All right. Thanks everybody for being here. We'll see you next time.
Welcome back. We've got another exciting play underway at KennedyAuto.com.
That's right. At KennedyAuto.com, you can browse their entire inventory from home.
The customer is scrolling hundreds of Ford, Mazda, and Subaru vehicles right at his fingertips.
He made his selection and got a bottom line price set directly to his email. He could go all the way.
And the deal is good, all without leaving his couch. Incredible. KennedyAuto.com. Enjoy your ride.
Discover the essence of true community banking with First Bank, your trusted partner across Eastern Pennsylvania and New Jersey. Their network of branches brings you convenient access to dedicated personal bankers who understand your unique needs. At First Bank, you're not just a customer, you're a valued member of the community. Additionally, they are excited to announce the opening of 2 new branches in Media, Pennsylvania and Trenton, New Jersey. bringing their personalized banking services even closer to you. Connect with any member of the team today at their Westchester office, conveniently located at 849 Paoli Pike, or call them at 484-881-3800. First Bank is an equal opportunity lender and member FDIC.
Johnny Apple's Restaurant and Bar opened in 2001 and for over 20 years has been serving great food and good times to Bucks County residents, friends, and family. Ideally located at 184 Buck Road in Holland, Johnny Apple's offers a terrific array of steaks, seafood, and daily specials. They also host private parties and affairs of any size. For excellent food, great company, and a relaxed lunch or dinner, check out Johnny Apple's Restaurant at 215-953-9900 or at johnnyapplesrestaurant.com.